The night was cold and quiet when Amir walked home from his late shift. The city looked tired, just like him. Street lights flickered as a soft wind moved wrappers and dry leaves along the road. Most people were already inside their warm homes, but Amir still had a long walk to go. His stomach growled as he thought about the small piece of bread he had saved in his pocket for dinner. He had just turned into a narrow street when he noticed something strange. At first, he thought it was a shadow. But then the shadow moved. At the side of the road, near a broken wall, a tiny figure was sitting on the ground. It was small, much smaller than a human child. It didn't make any sound. It only sat there, its head lowered as if it had no energy left to raise it. "Hey, are you okay?" Amir asked slowly, trying not to scare it. The figure lifted its head, and Amir froze. It was not human. Its skin glowed softly, like moonlight on water. Its eyes were huge and full of sadness. They reflected the streetlight in a strange, beautiful way. Its body was thin, almost fragile, like it hadn't eaten in a long time. A torn piece of fabric hung around its tiny shoulders. It was a tiny alien girl. For a moment, both of them just stared at each other. Amir had every reason to run. Anyone else would have screamed or called the police, but something in her eyes stopped him. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't evil. It was tired. It was hungry. It was lost. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the small piece of bread he had kept for himself. He held it out in his hand. "It's okay," he said gently. "You can have this." The tiny alien stared at the bread. Her eyes widened. She sniffed the air carefully, as if trying to decide whether it was safe. Her small hands trembled as she slowly reached out and touched it. When her fingers touched the food, a tiny glow ran through her body. She looked up at Amir again, confused and amazed. "Eat it," Amir said softly, very slowly. She took a tiny bite. Her eyes closed. Warmth rushed through her body. Something inside her, which had been empty and cold for a long time, suddenly felt full. Not just her stomach, but her heart. She ate fully, carefully, every small piece, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. "Are you alone?" Amir asked slowly. She nodded. Double quotes, "Do you have somewhere to go?" She shook her head. His heart sank. How long had she been here alone? Hungry, invisible to the world. "You can come with me," he said, without thinking. "Just for tonight. It's cold out here." She looked startled at first. Humans had ignored her. Some had even chased her away. But this one? He was different. Slowly, she stood up. She was even smaller than he had thought, barely reaching his knees. She took one tiny step forward, then another. Then she came and gently held the edge of his coat with her small, glowing hand. Amir's heart tightened. "That's okay," he whispered. "You're safe with me." As they walked together, something strange began to happen. Wherever her feet touched the ground, dried leaves turned slightly greener. Tiny cracks in the ground softened. A small wilted plant near the sidewalk raised its head as if touched by life. Amir noticed it, but didn't say anything. He only walked in quiet wonder. They reached his small apartment, and he carefully unlocked the door, looking around to make sure no one was watching. "Come in," he said. She stepped inside slowly, looking at everything like it was part of a dream. The light, the walls, the floor, the table, all so different from the world she had known. "You can sit here," Amir said, pulling a blanket from the couch and wrapping it around her. She sat down and looked up at him. "Why did you help me?" she asked in a soft, musical voice. Amir thought for a moment, then answered honestly, "Because no one should be hungry and alone in this world." Her eyes filled with a strange light, not just glow. Hope outside, unseen by Amir. A faint blue light flickered high in the clouds for just a second. The universe had noticed a simple, act of kindness, and somewhere very far away, something powerful had just awakened because a tiny, hungry alien girl had finally found a kind human. And magic had only just begun. Amir closed the door of his apartment slowly and rested his back against it. For a moment, he just stood there, breathing deeply, as if he needed to convince himself that what had just happened was real. In the middle of his small living room, the tiny alien girl sat wrapped in his blanket. Her silver skin glowed so softly now that it looked like the reflection of a quiet moon on calm water. Her big eyes moved carefully around the room, observing everything: the couch, the table, the small lamp, the window curtain that swayed gently in the breeze. She was silent, but not afraid. Amir stepped closer and knelt in front of her, trying not to look too surprised or too scared. "Are you okay now?" he asked in a kind, gentle voice. She looked at him and nodded slowly. "The hunger is gone," she whispered, "but I still feel very empty." Her words touched something deep inside him. "You're safe now," he said. "That's the most important thing. No one can hurt you here." She lowered her gaze to her small, glowing hands. "I do not understand this place," she said quietly. "Your world is loud. It is sharp, but you are soft." Amir smiled gently. "Not all humans are the same," he replied. "But I'm glad you found me instead of someone cruel." She looked up at those words. "You are the first one who saw me," she said. "The rest, they looked through me, like I was made of air." "That won't happen anymore," he promised. He walked to the kitchen and returned with a glass of warm water. "Drink this. It will help you relax." She carefully took the glass with both hands and touched it to her lips. The moment she drank, a light shimmer ran across her skin, like a soft wave of energy. Suddenly, something very strange happened. The light in the room flickered, not just once, but again and again, as if responding to her presence. "Did I do that?" she asked, alarmed. "I think so," Amir replied, surprised but calm. "But it's okay. Nothing broke." She looked around in fear. "I don't want to hurt anything." "You won't," he said quickly. "You're not a danger. You're just different." Her small hands trembled. She placed them on the floor, closing her eyes tightly, as if trying to hold something back. Too much feeling. Too much light. She whispered. Amir noticed the mirror hanging on the wall across the room. Its surface began to glow faintly, as if something inside it was waking up. "Look," he said in a low voice. "The mirror." She slowly opened her eyes and faced it. In the reflection, she saw herself for the first time truly. Her glowing skin, her silver eyes, her delicate face shaped by a world not of this earth. But behind her reflection, something else appeared. A faint image of another world. A sky filled with purple and blue stars. Tall crystal buildings rising into the clouds. Floating islands glowing with light. Beings made of shimmer and energy. A beautiful world now lost. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "That is my home," she whispered. "It is gone." The mirror trembled as her emotions grew stronger. The image faded, replaced by her sad reflection again. "I have never cried before," she said softly. "But it hurts less." Now Amir approached the mirror and gently covered it with a cloth. "What is your name?" he asked her carefully. She looked at him, surprised. "I don't remember," she said. "In my world, names were not spoken like this. They were felt." He thought for a moment, then smiled. "Then I will give you one. A name from Earth. Something warm and beautiful." He looked at her glowing skin, like the light of the moon. "How about Lumia?" She repeated it slowly. Lu-mi-a. A soft golden glow pulsed from her chest. "That feels right," she smiled faintly. "I like that name. Then from now on, you are Lumia." Amir said warmly. Her smile grew wider, and for the first time, a gentle laugh escaped her lips, a sound like tiny bells ringing in the air at that exact moment. Every dead leaf in the small flower pot near the window turned green again. A tiny flower bloomed. Amir stared in shock. You made it live again. No, Lumia whispered in awe. You made it possible. Because you fed me kindness. Outside the building, something unseen moved in the dark clouds above the city. A distant hum echoed in the sky, deep and unnatural. Like a warning, Lumia suddenly looked afraid again. They have found me, she whispered, clutching her chest. The ones who destroyed my world. Amir turned toward the window, his heart racing. What are they? He asked. Her glowing eyes reflected fear, and also something else. Power. They are coming, she whispered. And they do not come with kindness. High above the city, a thin red line flashed across the clouds for just 1 second, and somewhere far beyond Earth, machines awakened, tracking the light that had just been reborn. But inside the small apartment, one hungry alien girl and one brave human stood together, not knowing that the true beginning of magic was about to turn into something far more dangerous. The air inside Amir's apartment suddenly felt heavy, as if an invisible storm was building between the walls. Lumia stood frozen near the window, her silver glow slowly growing brighter. Outside, the night sky, once calm and ordinary, now carried a strange, deep vibration. It wasn't thunder. It was something alive, something watching. Do you see it? Lumia whispered, her eyes fixed on the clouds. Amir walked closer to the window and looked up. At first, he saw nothing but darkness and a few faint stars. Then, slowly, something moved. A massive shadow passed behind the clouds, stretching from one end of the sky to the other. His heartbeat grew faster. That's not a cloud, he murmured. No, Lumia said softly, her voice trembling. That is one of their watchers. Before he could ask anything else, a sharp blue beam of light cut through the clouds and landed on the roof of the building across the street. The air itself seemed to freeze. The light did not burn. It surged. People in other apartments inside the building began to scream and pull their curtains closed. Dogs started barking wildly. Cars came to sudden stops, but Lumia did not move. She only stared into the light. It knows where I am, she whispered. No, Amir replied quickly and stepped in front of her. It does not take you from here. I will not let it. She looked up at him, surprised by his courage. You cannot stop it, Amir, she said. They are not like humans. They do not feel. They only take, but you feel, he said firmly. And that means you're stronger than them. At that moment, Lumia felt something warm rise inside her chest. Not fear, not hunger. Something much older, much stronger. Hope. Her glow suddenly became softer and warmer, filling the room with a golden light instead of a cold silver one. The flickering lamp on the ceiling grew steady again. The walls seemed to breathe. The beam outside hesitated, as if confused by the change in her energy. What are you doing? Amir asked in awe. I am remembering, she whispered. My people were not only light. We were shields. Outside, the blue beam started to shake. The shadow in the clouds twisted, clearly disturbed. For the first time, the watcher was uncertain. Lumia slowly raised her small glowing hand toward the sky. She did not speak. She simply felt all the kindness, all the protection, all the safety she had been given since meeting Amir. A wave of soft golden light rippled out from her body and moved through the walls, the streets, the clouds above. It did not destroy anything. It healed the air, calmed the wind, and pushed the cold darkness away. The beams snapped off the rooftop. The shadow retreated. The sky returned to normal, silence fell over the city again. Amir stared at her in shock. "You just made it leave." Lumia slowly lowered her hand, her legs trembling slightly. "I did not fight it," she said. "I only reminded it that it has no power here." He knelt before her, holding her gently as if she might disappear. "You're not just a lost alien," he whispered in amazement. "You're something beautiful." She looked into his eyes. "I am only what your kindness helped me become." At that moment, the little flower near the window bloomed again. But this time, it opened wider, its petals shining with a faint golden glow. But it did not stop there. Every plant outside the building, every dying tree, every broken patch of grass began to change. With Lumia's energy touching the earth, life returned in places that had been forgotten. Across the street, a dry tree sent out a new green leaf. On a rooftop nearby, dead plants grew again in a dark alley. Tiny flowers pushed through cracked cement. People noticed. They stepped outside, looking at the sudden beauty in confusion and wonder. "What is happening?" Someone whispered. "Magic?" Another said softly, inside the apartment. Lumia looked down at her glowing hands. "Before my power was guided by fear," she said quietly. "Now it is guided by love." Amir smiled softly. "Then you'll never have to be afraid again." She turned and looked at him with gentle, shining eyes. "As long as you are near, I know who I am." Suddenly, she gasped and grabbed her chest. "What is it?" Amir asked, startled. "I feel—" "Another one," she whispered. "Another survivor like me. Lost and hiding, just like I was." "Where?" he asked. She pointed toward the horizon. "Far across the sea. And they are not strong like I am yet." Amir felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. "So you're not the only one," he said. "No," Lumia replied. "And now? It is my turn to become what you were to me." She turned her face toward the stars and whispered to the wind. "I am coming. I will find you. You are not alone anymore." High above the earth, the same golden light that once saved Lumia now reached out into the universe like a signal of hope. And far away, in a dark, forgotten corner of space, another tiny light flickered in response. Magic was no longer just beginning. It was spreading after the shadow in the sky disappeared. A strange peace settled over the city. The wind softened. The barking dogs went quiet. The frightened voices from nearby apartments slowly faded into curious whispers. It was as if the world had just held its breath. And now it was breathing again. Inside the small apartment, Amir and Lumia stood close together. Still trying to understand what had just happened. "You actually pushed it away," Amir said in amazement. Lumia looked at her glowing hands as if they didn't belong to her. "I didn't mean to do anything," she said softly. "I only thought of the warmth I felt when you fed me." And it answered. He smiled gently. "Maybe your magic doesn't come from power alone," he said. "Maybe it comes from your heart." She raised her eyes to him. "Then I will guard that heart," she replied quietly. A soft knock echoed through the apartment door. Surprising them both, Amir felt his muscles tighten. "Don't move," he whispered to her, and slowly walked toward the door. He looked through the small peephole. Standing outside were his elderly neighbors, Mrs. Anaya and her grandson, both holding a small basket of fruit and flowers. "They are scared," Lumia whispered. Double quotes, "Yes," Amir replied softly. "But not of you." He opened the door slightly. "We saw the light," Mrs. Anaya said in a trembling but gentle voice. "And we saw the plants outside grow again. We don't know what's happening, but it feels good, peaceful." Her eyes slowly moved past Amir and rested on the small glowing figure in the room. Gasps filled the hallway, yet no one screamed. "You did this, didn't you?" the old woman asked, Lumia stepped forward, not hiding this time. "I did not mean to frighten anyone," she said. "My world was taken away. I only want to give life back instead of pain." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. She walked closer, slowly, and gently placed the basket on the floor. "Then you are welcome here," she whispered. "A child who gives life deserves protection, not fear." Other neighbors appeared behind her, young and old, some holding candles, some holding water, some simply watching in silence. For the first time in a long time, the building felt like a family. "You see?" Amir said quietly to Lumia. "Not all humans ignore what is good." Lumia looked around, overwhelmed by the kindness. "I was starving because the world forgot me," she whispered. "Now the world sees me." Suddenly, something incredible happened. Small, glowing threads of light appeared in the air around Lumia. They floated to the people standing in the hallway and lightly touched their hands, their hearts, their foreheads. No one felt pain, only warmth, only calm. Outside the building, more people gathered as the night went on. But there was no fear in their eyes, only wonder. Some cried, some prayed. Some simply looked up at the sky and smiled for the first time in years. Where Lumia walked, life returned. Dry flower pots bloomed again. Cracks in the walls grew small vines that held the bricks together. A broken bird on the sidewalk opened its wings and flew once more into the night sky. "Are you healing everything?" Amir asked. She shook her head gently. "I am only reminding the earth that it wants to live." From somewhere deep inside her chest, Lumia suddenly felt another pull, stronger than before. But this time, it wasn't dark. It was soft, weak, crying. "They're calling me," she whispered. "Who?" Amir asked. "Another child like me, somewhere far away, lost, hungry, and afraid." A cold feeling settled in his heart. "You want to go to them?" he said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "Just as you came to me, I must go to them." He looked at her, pain in his eyes. "But you just found a home here." She touched his face gently. "You taught me what home is," she said softly. "Now I must teach it to another." The sky above them suddenly shimmered with soft golden light, forming a path like a glowing river between the stars. Villagers, neighbors, people from the streets looked up and pointed. "She is being called," someone whispered. Lumia turned to Amir one last time. "I will return," she promised. "But I must answer this light now. Someone else is waiting as I once did." Tears rolled down his face, but he did not stop her. "Then go," he said softly, "and give them the same magic you gave me." Her body began to rise slowly from the ground. The light around her grew gentle but powerful, like the first sunrise over a new world. "Remember," she whispered to him, "you are the reason I found my strength." Then she looked to the open sky, "And I am the reason someone else will find theirs." In a graceful wave of shining light, Lumia lifted into the air and followed the glowing path between the stars, disappearing into the night above the city that had once ignored her. But now, the entire world would remember the night the tiny alien girl walked among them. And the night magic truly began. Lumia's light faded into the dark sky like a falling star disappearing behind the clouds. For a long moment, everyone just stood there, looking upward, as if hoping she might come back down the same shining path she had taken. But the sky slowly returned to normal. The golden trail melted into the deep blue, and the stars once again looked quiet and distant. On the ground below, the city had been transformed. Where once there were cracked sidewalks and dying plants, now small green leaves pushed through the stone. Flowers bloomed along the edges of roads that had not seen color in years. The air itself felt cleaner, lighter, almost sweet. It was as if the land remembered something beautiful and had decided to hold on to that feeling. Amir stood still, staring at the empty sky. "She's really gone," he whispered. But inside his chest, where his heart beat, there was still a soft warmth, as if a tiny sun was resting there. He placed his hand over that spot and closed his eyes. "I can still feel her," he said softly. "It's like she left a part of her behind." Inside everything, people gathered around him slowly, but carefully, as if they were afraid to disturb something sacred. A mother holding her child stepped forward. "She wasn't dangerous," the woman said quietly. "Was she?" "No," Amir replied, his voice calm but full of emotion. "She was lost, just like so many of us. And then she found kindness." An old man took off his hat. "She reminded this city how to breathe," he murmured. Words spread fast, faster than fire, faster than fear. Within hours, people from other streets, other neighborhoods, and even other towns came to see the place where Lumia had stood. They walked carefully, respectfully, almost like visitors in a holy place. Children knelt and touched the ground, feeling the new grass, the soft earth, the living soil. Adults stood in silence, feeling something inside them shift. People who had once argued with their neighbors now spoke kindly. Those who had held anger in their hearts for years suddenly felt it fading, replaced by an unfamiliar peace. It was not magic that forced them to change. It was a reminder that they could. Amir returned to his apartment once the crowd had calmed. Inside, everything looked the same, yet completely different. Her small blanket still lay on the sofa. The cup she had held was still on the table and near the window. The glowing flower she had brought to life shone softly in the fading light. He walked to it and touched one of its petals. It felt warm, alive. "You kept a part of yourself here," he whispered. That night, Amir could not sleep. He sat by the window, watching the sky, thinking about her words. "Someone else is waiting as I once did." Across the vast oceans, across endless lands, another tiny alien child sat alone somewhere, lost, hungry. Afraid, she is going to find them, he thought. Suddenly, a soft shimmer of light moved through the air. In front of him, the glowing flower's light lifted off its petals and formed a tiny, floating orb, just like the one Lumia had once created. Inside it, faint shapes moved, like distant memories. And then, an image appeared. A dark, cold desert, broken stone ruins. A very small, glowing figure curled up on the ground, trembling in fear. Another alien child. "Is that where you are?" Amir whispered to the light. "Is that where she has gone?" The orb pulsed once, brighter, and then a second image formed. Lumia, she was standing in the desert beside the trembling child. Her light now strong and radiant again. Slowly, gently, she lowered herself and touched the child's face, just as Amir had once touched her own with kindness. The second child's light flickered to life. Tears rolled down Amir's cheeks. "She found them," he breathed. "A tea, just like she promised." The image faded and the orb settled back into the flower, becoming quiet again. But Amir knew something deeply now. Lumia was no longer just a lost alien girl. She had become a traveler of light, a healer of worlds, a guardian of the forgotten. And somewhere out there, she was walking through darkness, just like she had once walked through Amir Street. But this time, she was bringing the magic with her. Outside the apartment window, the sky shifted ever so slightly. A shooting star crossed the darkness, leaving a golden trail before disappearing. Amir smiled through his tears. "Go on, Lumia," he whispered. "Find them all." Below him, the city slept peacefully for the first time in many years. No fear, no anger, no chaos. Only hope, because a hungry tiny alien had once met a kind human. And because of that moment, a cue, magic did not end. It only continued. 2 nights had passed since Lumia had risen into the sky. The city no longer felt like the same place. People smiled when they passed one another on the street. Strangers held doors open. Old enemies spoke like friends. Even the air had a softer scent, like rain on warm soil. But inside Amir's apartment, there was a quiet space that could not be filled. He kept the window open every night, even when the air turned cold, hoping to feel the same gentle breeze that had once lifted her glowing hair. The flower she had, brought back to life, still glowed softly on the windowsill, its silver petals catching the moonlight. "You're still here, aren't you?" he whispered to it. A faint warmth answered his fingertips. On the 3rd night, something changed. Amir was standing at the window, looking at the sky, when he noticed a tiny star moving in a way that was not normal. It didn't streak like a shooting star. It didn't blink like a plane. It moved slowly, carefully, like it was finding its way. He pressed his hand to the glass. It came closer. Brighter clarity replaced distance, and he realized was not a star at all. It was Lumia. She floated down toward the rooftop in complete silence, her body surrounded by a soft golden glow. Unlike the first time she had lifted into the clouds, this light felt calm, controlled, peaceful. She looked stronger, but also different. Wiser, she stepped onto the rooftop and looked toward his window. "Open it," her voice whispered. Carried by the wind, Amir rushed to pull the window open, his heart racing wildly. "Lumia," she smiled. Not weak, not afraid. Strong and certain. "You came back," he breathed. "I told you I would." She answered gently. She hovered into the apartment, her bare feet touching the floor softly. The room glowed for a moment, then returned to normal as her light lowered itself again. He stepped closer, tears in his eyes. "I thought you had gone forever." "No," she replied. "I went to save another lost heart, just like you saved mine." "What happened?" he asked. "I found him," she said. "A boy, small, cold, forgotten in a dying world. The same hunger that once lived inside me lived inside him too." Amir listened carefully. "He was afraid of my light at first," she continued. "But I knelt beside him and gave him warmth instead of fear. And when I touched his hand, his world started to heal." Tears slipped down her glowing cheeks as she spoke, but she did not hide them. "He is safe now," she whispered. "And not alone anymore." Amir smiled warmly. "You did exactly what you were meant to do." "But I did not come back alone," she said softly. Behind her, the air shifted. A faint blue shimmer opened up like a door in space. Out of it stepped someone very small, even smaller than Lumia had once been. Another alien child. He was thin, skin pale and faintly glowing like morning frost. His eyes were wide and filled with uncertainty as he looked around the unfamiliar world. "He had no one," Lumia said gently. "So I brought him here, to the first place I ever felt safe." Amir knelt down slowly in front of the child. "You can stay here," he said kindly, just as he had said to Lumia weeks ago. "You don't have to be alone anymore." The child looked at Lumia. "Is he kind too?" he whispered. She smiled and nodded. "He was my first miracle." The boy stepped forward and held the edge of Amir's shirt, just as Lumia had once done. A quiet circle had been completed. That night, 3 silent hearts shared the same small room. 1 human, 2 lost lights, 1 new beginning. But Lumia did not sleep. She stood near the window, her eyes far away, her senses listening to something deeper than sound. "They will not stop," she whispered suddenly. "What?" Amir asked, standing immediately. "The Dark Hunters. The ones who destroyed my people. They felt the healing of that world too. And now? They know I survived. Amir felt the air grow cold again. They will come for you, he said. They will come for Earth, she replied. Outside, low rumble echoed through the night sky, like a distant storm that had not yet arrived. But this time, Lumia said, turning toward him with calm eyes, I am not the only light bearer. Her glow expanded slightly, and the young alien boy beside her began to glow as well. Together, they shone gold and blue, like two young stars side by side. And this world now has something it never had before, Lumia said softly. Hope and defendable light. Above them, the clouds began to swirl in an unnatural circle, high above the earth, far beyond sight. Something dark was moving closer, but inside that small apartment where kindness had once begun with a simple piece of bread. The magic was no longer small. It was ready to fight back. The sky outside Amir's window no longer looked peaceful. What once had been soft and quiet now churned like a wounded sea. The clouds swirled in slow circles, turning darker with every passing second. A strange vibration filled the air, not loud enough to be heard by most people, but strong enough to be felt deep in the bones. Inside the apartment, the light from Lumia and the small alien boy cast gentle colors on the walls. Gold and blue waves shimmered across the room like reflections from a faraway ocean. They are close now, Lumia whispered. Amir swallowed hard. How close? Close enough to see us, she replied. The small alien boy moved closer to her, clutching her glowing hand. I don't want to go back to the darkness, he whispered, his voice trembling. You won't, she said gently. Not while I am here. Not while he is here. She glanced at Amir. Amir nodded slowly. No one is taking either of you. Suddenly, every light in the building went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Silence wrapped around the apartment like a thick blanket. Even the city noises outside seemed to fade away. Then a deep, hollow sound echoed from the sky above, like a giant drum being struck in space. Boom! The walls vibrated. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The small flower near the window dimmed slightly. They have arrived, Lumia said, her voice calm but serious. This is not a scout. This is a command ship. Amir rushed to the window and pulled the curtain aside just a little. What he saw stole the breath from his lungs. A massive black shape hovered over the city, larger than any building, wider than any street. Its surface moved like living metal, rippling and shifting, covered in dark symbols, glowing faintly red dot at its center. One enormous eye-like light opened, and it stared directly at the building. At us, Amir whispered, inside all three of their minds. A voice thundered like a storm across a battlefield. Return the light-bearers, or your world will fall. The boy clutched his ears and cried out in fear. Amir dropped to one knee, the pain of the voice tearing through his head like fire. But Lumia, she stood tall, brighter, steadier. You will not touch this world, she said, her voice rising like a calm wave above a raging ocean. It has already suffered enough. You are property of the Dark Order, the voice answered, created to be used, to be harvested, to be controlled. No, she replied peacefully. I was created to heal. Her light expanded, wrapping around Amir and the frightened boy like a shield made of living warmth. Outside the building, people fell to the ground in fear as shadows covered the streets. Sirens began blaring in the distance. Windows shattered. Cars crashed as drivers abandoned them. The sky had become a battlefield without fire. You cannot win, the voice growled. You are only two. Lumia glanced at the boy beside her. Then she looked at Amir. Then she looked at the flower on the windowsill. Then she looked out at the people below. We are not only two, she whispered. She stepped onto the balcony, rising slowly into the air again, but this time, she was not alone. The small alien boy floated up beside her, his blue light growing stronger as he found courage within her glow. Then something incredible happened. Tiny sparkles began appearing across the city, in homes, in parks, on rooftops. Wherever seeds of hope had been planted by Lumia's earlier touch, small glowing dots began to rise into the air. They were not aliens, they were humans, or rather, the tiny bits of light inside human hearts responding to her. Call children, grandparents, artists, teachers, strangers, who had felt kindness just once. Their inner light rose up to the sky, and it joined her gold, blue, white. Thousands of small lights gathered around Lumia, like stars forming a galaxy. The dark ship hesitated, its surface trembling. "This is impossible." The deep voice whispered, "This is what happens when you plant kindness instead of fear," Lumia said. Then she raised her hands to the sky. A breathtaking wave of light burst outward, not violent, not destructive, but so powerful in its purity that the dark metal of the alien ship began to crack, not from attack, but from inability to exist in the presence of such light. Cracks of white spread across the surface. The red symbols flickered. The terrifying eye dimmed. "Retreat." The voice commanded, but it was too late. With one final pulse of pure magic, the dark ship dissolved into black mist that scattered and vanished into the sky. The cloud cover broke apart. Stars reappeared. Moonlight returned. Silence. ... Then, cheers, loud, human, joyful. Lumia slowly descended back to the balcony. As her feet touched the ground, the combined light around the city gently faded. Settling peacefully back into everything it had touched, people came out of their homes cautiously. Looking at the sky in wonder, Amir rushed toward her. "You did it," he said, in disbelief. "You saved us all." "No," she smiled softly. "They saved themselves. I only showed them how to believe in their own light." The small alien boy looked out over the city. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "Yes," Lumia replied, "because it is alive with hearts that remembered who they are." Amir looked at both of them. "What happens now?" he asked. Lumia took a deep breath and gazed at the horizon, where the first hint of sunrise touched the sky. "Now," she said gently, "this world becomes a new home for lost light, and a place where hope will always grow again. And in the very place where a tiny, starving alien once met one kind human, a new universe of magic had begun to bloom. The night that had started in fear ended in silence, and then, in light, slowly, the people of the city began to step outside their homes again. Windows opened. Doors unlocked. Children peeked around corners. Parents held them close, but their faces no longer showed terror. They showed wonder. The massive dark ship was gone. The swirling clouds had cleared. The stars now shone bright and peaceful above the rooftops. It felt like the world had been reborn. On Amir's balcony, Lumia stood with a small alien boy beside her. The air around them still glowed faintly, as if reality itself had not yet decided to let go of their light. The city below watched them in quiet awe. No one shouted. No one ran. People only looked up, eyes filled with gratitude, like they were witnessing something sacred. "You're still here," a voice called from below. It was the little girl who had been the first to hug Lumia. She stood in the street holding her mother's hand, pointing up toward the glowing figures above. "So are you," Lumia replied softly. The words drifted on the warm breeze, wrapping around the people like an invisible hug, one by one. The tiny glowing lights that had risen from human hearts slowly returned to their owners. Children felt warmth inside their chests. Old people felt young again. Broken spirits felt mended. It was as if a gentle hand had touched thousands of souls and whispered, You matter." Amir watched it all in silence. He had lived in this city his whole life, but he had never seen it like this before. "You changed everything," he whispered to Lumia. She shook her head gently. "No, I helped them remember what they already were." She looked at the alien boy beside her. He stared at the city in amazement, his pale light now steady and strong. "Do you feel it?" she asked him. He nodded slowly. "It's not as heavy here," he said. "The universe doesn't feel so cold." "That is because kindness lives here now," she replied. A sudden breeze lifted her hair, and for a moment she looked like the child she had once been again, small, fragile, confused. "And do you feel safe?" Amir asked her quietly. She looked at him, really looked at him. Not as a savior, not as a protector, but as a friend. "Yes," she answered honestly. "This is the safest I have ever felt." Tears filled his eyes. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe she might stay forever, but deep down, he knew better. "You're thinking about leaving again, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "There are other worlds still crying in the dark. Other lost children still starving for kindness, just like I once was." The alien boy looked down when he heard that. "You will help them too," she said to him softly. "That is why you survived." He looked up at her, a small, hopeful smile appearing on his face. "And you?" Amir asked quietly. "Where do I belong in all of this?" Lumia stepped closer and placed her glowing hand over his heart. "You are already where you belong," she said gently. "You are the first spark in a galaxy of light. Every child I save, every world I heal, will carry your kindness inside it." She looked out over the city one last time. "But I must go again." The sunrise began to touch the top of the buildings now, painting the city in gold and pink. It wrapped around Lumia's skin, mixing with her own light until she looked like part of the dawn itself. "This time, I will not go alone," she said. The alien boy stood beside her. "I'm ready," he whispered. Amir's heart broke and healed at the same time. "When will you come back?" he asked. Lumia smiled a soft, beautiful smile. "When this world needs to remember again." She stepped onto the edge of the balcony. Slowly, her body lifted into the air. The alien boy followed beside her, his blue glow bright and brave now. The entire city watched. As they rose higher and higher into the morning sky, people placed their hands over their hearts. Some cried, some smiled. Some whispered thank you to the heavens. "Goodbye." Amir Lumia called gently through the wind. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." "Go change the universe," he whispered back, his voice shaking but proud. "It already changed me." Her laugh echoed softly like music as she and the boy turned into pure light, stretching upward until they became two bright stars in the blue morning sky. When they vanished, the city felt quiet again. But not empty. It felt full. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and everywhere people went, kindness seemed to follow. Strangers helped each other. Children shared their food. Homes filled with flowers and laughter. Stories spread of a glowing alien girl who had once walked those streets, and the human who had given her bread when she was starving. Legends were born. And sometimes, late at night, when Amir looked up at the stars, he saw two lights shining brighter than the rest, one gold, one blue, and he knew magic had not ended. It had simply gone on to find the next lost soul who needed a little light.